Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. Okay, so I know you guys are probably tired of me getting excited, but it's now been, 4 shows in a row? So, now I'm starting to possibly believe that it might be a monthly show. So
or
now
I'm just so excited. So.
Welcome, Tracy, back to the show. Oh, yeah. Well, so I know a lot has happened in the past. Goodness, the past month. So let's start with what's happening with Dr. Huey and maybe some of the other naturopaths and alternative holistic practitioners.
Okay, so I said to Laurie before we started the call, we were chatting just a little bit before we opened the doors, confession. And I said to her, I really wanted to start the call today with something that's really, really dear to my heart. And it does have to do with a letter that did not, now I don't quite know why it actually didn't directly get sent to me, because I was a patient of Dr. Huey's, but it didn't. And I'm very happy that a client/friend of mine sent me a copy of this Dr. Fred Huey letter a couple of weeks ago, and I was able to send it out to as many people as I had email addresses for that I could find, and I spent several days doing it. And he had very nicely written a letter speaking about a bill, speaking about a change that was up to be happening with the Ontario College of Physicians, and that change could potentially be happening very soon. In other words, sometime around mid-March. And so he was sending out this letter to let his patients know this. And I have now posted it on my Facebook page, and I don't have tons of Facebook followers, but I did my best. And I posted it out because I really felt like people needed to know that this was going on. And so effectively what the proposed change is to constrict what the physicians of Ontario would be able to do moving forward. So Dr. Huey and other physicians like him, Dr. Kropp has retired now, but they were allowed with full approval from the Ontario Physicians Governing Board to venture farther out from what let's call the normal doctors here would do. And so they weren't just using pharmaceutical drugs. They weren't just recommending surgeries. They were reaching out to other things that they went and learned about. So they'd become acupuncture doctors. They'd become maybe even osteopaths. They'd become real masters at what I call orthomolecular medicine, which is the study of vitamins and minerals and herbs. And they were using those things in practice. Dr. Huey, one of the things that he does in his practice is vitamin C intravenous and chelation therapies, and things that have been very helpful to people. And they're just outside of the regular realm of where a regular general physician would be. And so they're what we would call integrative medical doctors. And we really need doctors like this. These are doctors that have really ventured in to really embrace the concept, the quantum physics concept that all matter is energy. And so they are really looking not just at the physical matter of somebody, but they're looking at what's going on in the energy fields of them. How do we balance the energy of this person? They're really looking much more holistically at what's going on with this person, and not just feeling like they have to be limited to a pharmaceutical drug for a solution, which they know is never really a full integrative holistic solution. And so these doctors really felt that pull to move away from where traditional medical world was here in North America and here in Canada, and they did this quite a few years ago, and they really just said, I can't be the best doctor that I want to be if I don't look outside the realms that have been available in my college. And now what's happening is the College of Physicians is wanting to rein all of that in, and is really sending something out that's saying we want to do some things and make some changes that fundamentally is going to make it feel much more unsafe for a doctor to practice as an integrative medical doctor here in Ontario. And I'm sure what's going on in Ontario is going to spread through other provinces, because it seems like we tend to be the if we can shift it in Ontario, and it seems that it gets shifted pretty easily in all of these other provinces. And that's what happened with the Psychotherapy Act of 2009. So I just wanted to say that Laurie said that she was going to post that letter on her website. Right. The letter came with templates. He took the time to create templates, like letters that had already been written, that all you had to do was fill in the name of your provincial government official. Maybe you even wanted to fill in the name of Doug Ford, the premier. He didn't leave a space for that, but I'm sure you can do that. And start sending these out. I actually mailed mine. Now, maybe it's a little late in the game to be mailing yours, but somebody told me a long time ago when I was doing actually it was a senator. It was a senator in our Canadian Senate that said this to my father years ago, said that people that actually take the time to physically send out their letters with a physical stamp, then they are taken more seriously by our government than the people that just email something in. It was interesting that during that Bill C-56 fiasco that's now passed years ago, that particular senator said he'd never seen, now this is obviously federal, he'd never seen so many letters pouring in about this particular topic ever for any reason. And this particular bill, this C-56 that turned into C-6, that's a whole protection bill, and probably one of the biggest reasons why we're having this issue now with the Ontario College of Physicians goes right back to the passing of that bill, which was, it just left a whole bunch of room for a beautiful natural medicine products to start, being removed from our shelves. Right. So anyway, I just like people to pay attention to this. As I said to Laurie, I'm not here trying to get people that really aren't interested in alternative medicine now rah interested in it. I'm just here to say, hey, when these things pass and when this kind of stuff goes down and it's going backwards, not forwards, it takes a long time to move a system in a direction. And this is a direction move backward, not forward. Definitely. And that's very disturbing. And I'm hoping that it would be very disturbing to everybody that's listening. This is constricting a doctor's ability to work and a doctor's ability to help. It's not enhancing it. It's not evolving it. It's not expanding it. It's actually constricting it. And I just would like people to really think that maybe that's a really bad idea.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was just physical. Like, I didn't realize it was the medical doctors only. I kind of thought it was more, but wow.
Yeah, and so they're tying their hands more. And I don't know how long it took the doctors to get their hands a little untied, but I'm sure that was, it took a lot of energy. And yeah, it's very disturbing that is going on. And I don't want my doctor's hands tied. I don't think they have enough resources available to them to be able to help us. And I just don't want my doctor's hands tied. Yeah. And I don't want their hearts tied. Like, to tie a doctor's hands is to tie a doctor's heart, right? Those doctors reached out to find more of that information because their hearts, they have hearts in those bodies, and their hearts just couldn't be there being a doctor that only had this much of an ability to function to be helpful. Yeah. And so anyway, I don't want to take up our whole lovely time frame with this, but it's such an important topic. And people just don't know. And I think before I close off this, the other thing that disturbed me this week is our representative. So her name, I'm okay with mentioning it, Rima Burns McGowan. She sent out, so Laurie, this would be you too. We are in the same district. So she's our provincial representative. She sent her regular medical newsletter out this month, and it was all about, here's what we wanted to tell you. Now, she's NDP. Here's what we want to tell you about what we're doing here and all the good stuff that's happening and all the news about the vaccines and all the news about how they might be given out and all the good stuff that they're doing. And it was a lovely newsletter, well-written, lovely newsletter. And the whole purpose of that particular newsletter was to inform us of what's going on that might concern us around public health.
Okay.
And provincially public health, like where the provincial government is in all of this. So now you would think if there is this physician board regulation that's just up on the chopping block right now, it's right there to be voted on. You would think that her being our representative, and I don't care where she's coming from, I don't care if it's conservative, liberal, NDP, independent, I don't care. I saw it as her responsibility when she was creating that beautiful, well-written newsletter that was all about where we are and where the government and how the government is helping you with your health and this vaccination and doctors and blah, blah. You would think that that would be in her newsletter. You would think that she would have said, oh, and by the way, there's this, important thing that's going on and this important decision that's going on with regard to doctors that could impact the doctor's power and the doctor's ability to function. And what's happening right now is that, they're really thinking about taking some of that power away from the doctors and constricting what the doctors are going to be able to do so that there won't really be, or there's, kind of a proposed threat to integrative medical working. You'd think that would be in the newsletter. And I'd like to know how you feel about that. Like, isn't that what we want from a provincial representative of government? I'd like to know how you feel about this because I have to put a vote to this.
Yeah. And
we never heard that. That was never written in the newsletter, and that would have been the month to write it in the newsletter. Mm-hmm. So I'm calling her out. I wrote her a letter and I'm calling her out. That's shoddy politics. That you're not working for our best interest when you're not that's a big deal. It's not a little deal. That's a big deal. You're talking about how the doctors are going to be able to function moving forward in this province. That's a big deal. And I am a constituent in this province, and I'd like to know what's going on there. Right. Laurie, would you like to know?
Definitely.
Yeah, I'd like to know. And she's the person that's supposed to let us know.
Right.
Right? That's her job. Right? To me, that's her job. It's not just about telling me where the next place that I can get a vaccine is going to be and how good they are about doing that. This is her job too.
Absolutely.
And I think people should be able to form their opinion directly to her, but how can they do that if nobody told them that that was going on? So God bless Dr. Huey, and he has a larger staff than I think most doctors do. And he's got a big practice, and God bless him for putting that letter together and for putting those templates together. And yeah, anyway, I'll stop talking about it, but those are all my feelings on that topic for today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's disturbing, to say the least. It
is disturbing. So now, I could very easily, it'd be so easy for me to fall into that place of judgment to Miss Rima and to our government. It'd be very easy for me to fall in that place of judgment, but to be in a place of judgment is never to be clear. So even though it would be so easy in that feeling of disappointment just to slide down that slippery slope of judgment, I have to recognize this is happening for us, for me, not to me. So, okay, I'm making a choice to move myself out of judgment, which means I'm making a choice to bring that divine corridor of light into the part of me that's just really, 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 really wanting to judge this and judge her. And I'm just allowing that beautiful divine aspect of me to meet me in my disappointment, to meet me in my pain. That's what I want. Because somewhere in that pain and somewhere in that disappointment and somewhere in that place of, I just so want to judge these people, there are truths that I'm not grabbing onto. There are divine truths that I'm not accessing in this moment. Right. And because I desire to be clear, then I'm saying yes to that. That's what I want. So I'm allowing for that healing, and if there is anything that is blocking that within me, blocking that, resisting that, interfering with that, if there's any obstacles that are in the way of that, then I am saying yes to myself, yes to that source of light. Move those, whether they be emotion, whether they belief, whether they be programming, move those or bring those into some form of upgrade if it's still beneficial for them to stay. Which again is moving them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am in a place of gratitude for the change. Because anytime I'm making a choice to move out of judgment and into clarity, it's change.
Right.
So I am grateful for that change, so that I can be clear.
Yeah.
And then speak more clearly. And I think this is part of maybe, not that I was ever taught it this way, but maybe this would be in a master your emotions class. Like I'm not making the emotion of disappointment bad. I'm not making it wrong. I'm recognizing I am disappointed. I am disappointed with how this has happened. I am disappointed in how this was handled. I am disappointed in, and I'm not pretending that I'm not. And I'm desiring to have that disappointment touched and held by that light within me, that source of light beyond, because I don't want to spend my day disappointed. I don't want to spend my day in judgment. I'd like to still find happiness in this day and vitality in this day and joy in this day. So even though this has happened, and even though she's made these choices, and even though our government has made some of these choices, I don't want to sit here and spend my day in disappointment. I don't want to sit here and spend my day in fear. And there's a choice. Right. There's a choice, and I'm choosing to not be there and to not continue to stay there, but I'm not repressing it either. And we spoke about that, I think, in the first session. So that's Hawkins' work, letting go. I'm consciously choosing not to suppress or repress or run away from that emotion of disappointment or that emotion of sadness. I'm allowing it to be administered to by me.
Nice.
By me, by that highest aspect of me connecting to that source of light beyond. Because I don't want all of what's gone on here to hijack my day.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, well, that was long, but I felt like it kind of tied up the first talk that we had to this one. And kind of, I like to teach people sometimes how I operate.
Right.
Like how I operate, because this is the way I live. This is the way I live my life. This is the way I work to manage emotion or work to master it on some level. And not every day am I mastering that emotion of anger or mastering. Sometimes I'm just choosing to not. I'm not just going to stay angry for the day. I'm just going to stay angry for the week.
I hear you.
Yeah, but there is a consequence to that. Yeah. So, and I still feel it's working. I still feel it working, but it's not through yet.
Right.
It's not through yet. It's a process. It's a process. So it's interesting when you step into these things and you talk about these things and you really feel some passion for these things and emotion connected to it. You just don't move out of it in 2.5 seconds, even though you have that skill set.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It kind of leads into what you wanted to talk about, though, about acceptance.
Yeah. Well, this was the other, okay, so this was, okay, so I was speaking with a new client. She's actually a younger client. And I was speaking with her one day about a problem that she was having with a girlfriend of hers. And what came out of my mouth, it was channeled at the time. And it wasn't something that I don't believe, and it wasn't something that I wouldn't actually put together, but I wouldn't necessarily have put it together in one beautiful sentence. And that's what I love about channeled information, is sometimes it's like it's things that you knew, but then it just gets put together in one sentence or two sentences, and you're listening to yourself talking, going, wow, that was really good. That was a really good way of saying that. That was awesome. You're just watching it come out and going, wow, couldn't have said it better. And you're just kind of like, wow, thank you for that, wherever that came. So this was one of those moments. And the sentence that came out, and this was like quote unquote, so let's say a quote unquote, the higher self of me, because I guess it came from there, or a guardian angel working with me, or one of my guides, but I think it's just then all me. If you can't accept the change, you can't hold the change.
Yeah.
And that's what I said to her. And it's like when truth is spoken, it's like there's this really cool feeling, like it's even there as we're talking. It's like there's this feeling that just sits there with you as it's spoken, and hearts know that it's true, and then hearts are connected, and it's just this beautiful kind of backward and forward understanding that we're sitting in truth. And we might not know what to do with that truth. Like, not at all. We're just kind of, I call it floating in it. Like we're floating it right now. And that's exactly where we were with her. She then, had the next, which is like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, perfect question. But she still knew that she was floating in truth. So then we needed to unpack it for her. We needed to really just kind of get her to really get it consciously, because if she got it consciously, then maybe the next time it happened, she'd recognize it more quickly and recognize, hey, you know what? That person who's just come into my field is speaking to me. They're giving me a clue. And so, again, if we're going to judge stuff, and if we're going to judge the people coming into our life, and if we're going to judge the circumstance, we're going to miss it.
Right.
We're going to miss it. We're going to miss the juiciness of life. We're going to miss the really cool moments that we could have if we just would quiet the judgment. Right? If we just could master the emotions a little and just sit from a different space. So in this particular instance, she was upset. She wanted the entire session to be about, what this friend was doing and how this friend was not letting go of this idea that she couldn't possibly have closure here with this person. Like there was more that she had to do to have closure with this person. And her friend was very concerned for her. Didn't want her in a place of delusion, didn't want her in a place of denial, wanted to make sure she really, 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 really had closed those doors so that she could move on with her life. So her friend wasn't coming to her to harm her. And her friend wasn't coming to destroy her. Her friend wasn't coming to do anything other than say, hey, you know what? You said that you were past this. You said, but her friend was kind of in a situation going, I can't believe that it could be that simple. It can't be that simple.
Right.
You know, you've got to do more to be moved out of that relationship. It just can't be that simple. Well, then we go back to the first talk. I think it was the first talk or the second talk. The whole programming around healing.
Second.
Second. Okay. Well, how difficult does healing need to be? Well, I don't know. What's your program? You know, I don't know what's your program. How much suffering has to go into that thing called healing before you can have full closure? Full closure means brought back to pure peace, where pure peace is there, love and gratitude. Well, I don't know how much. How much for you? Let's look at your program versus mine. You know, but I can tell you a significant amount of the humans that walk this planet have healing programs that are internalized and unconscious that are extensive and include an extensive amount of suffering, an X amount of pain, an X amount of hardship, an X amount of attachments, like just X amount of torture before it's concluded, before it's done, before you can say, okay, I'm through this, I'm over this. You know, there's all that stuff that has to be filled. Well, that's what this person was doing to her,
right.
Is literally saying, you know, you got to do more, you got to do more. This isn't compliant to my version of healing. And what happened for my client is she started to doubt. She started to doubt, like there was this little, what I call it an unwinding. Things started to unwind within her. She started to question whether in fact she really was done with this. She started to just kind of listen more to what her friend was saying and listen to how her friend thought this should be and the letter that her friend thought should be written or the last time that they should get together or whatever that was. And she started to listen, but it was the unwinding with her friend now questioning her action.
Right.
So even though she had just absolutely closed that door, absolutely had some really good understanding of what had brought that relationship into her life, really good understanding of where her value system was versus this other person, meaning the boyfriend, some really, really good understanding. It didn't take long for this friend to start to, with what she was delivering, to unwrap this, unwind her, and bring her into a place of questioning and doubt. And then that phrase, if you can't accept the change, you can't accept the change until you can hold the change. So then I said to my client, you're not holding the change. That's how she got in. She got in because if you think of yourself as your own universe with your own boundary, like your own cell within the universe, her words and her way of thinking started to literally enter into your cell. Like a virus, it started to enter into the cell. Your wall of your cell started to kind of get really thin, or almost a door opened to what she was saying, and in her words went, and in her ideas went right into you, and started the unwrapping and the questioning and the doubting. So how did that happen? How did your boundary, how did the edge of your cell become loosened to the point where it became maybe invisible, to the point where a door opened? How did that happen? Because what she was saying and how she was saying it was a match for what was inside of you and your cell unconsciously that you were not aware of. And so it was easy for the boundary to become invisible and the door to open because there was a match energetically and magnetically. So even though you, the client, didn't get that consciously and were not in that place consciously, it didn't take her long to literally get you hooked into what she was saying, because what she was saying was what you were internally believing at an unconscious level. And not that you were necessarily believing it, but the people that came before you were, and that was the embedded software that you were running your life from.
Right.
So I said, even though you, the client, didn't really know that your healing model was that extensive, was requiring, before this could be fully resolved and before this change could be fully made, that you had not complied with all of the criteria for closure, and you didn't know that that had happened. And the way that you even get a sniff of this is because somebody comes into your world that you call friend, that starts talking in verbiage that's very similar to what you're holding, and you lose your boundary and you start to be doubtful. Right. And then if you want to get judgmental about it, then you point your finger at your friend and say, stop making me doubtful. Stop that. Just stop that. And it's just like, well, they're just literally hooking into something that is potentially already within you, that is unconscious, and it's giving you the opportunity to stop pointing the finger at your friend and start upgrading the healing model within yourself.
Right.
Or to recognize, oh, all that stuff that my friend is literally consciously going blah, 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 right into my ears, is stuff that I am holding, something very similar within me, and I didn't know it at all. But that's why it became so easy for her to hook me. Now, you'll call that, some people would call that sabotage. So we may call that my friend was sabotaging my healing. Well, no, your friend was actually starting to give you voice. She was starting to give a voice for what was eventually going to sabotage your healing. So she was poking at it to give you the opportunity to clear it or shift it if you stop judging it. Mm-hmm. Also, what your friend was doing is what we'd also say is your friend was brought you back to where it was believed internally you belonged. Mm. You don't belong where you are right now, where you're saying, good, I'm done, I'm good, I can move forward. You belong more where she is. Right. But you're trying to not be that. But we are always going to be working to bring us back into congruence with where we are unconsciously. And I think that's a really interesting thing to say. Mm-hmm. We will always bring ourselves back to where we are unconsciously. So she rose away from where she was unconsciously. It really felt so good, the work that we'd done, that she was just, yes, I can totally see this. Yes, this feels so amazing. But she couldn't hold it because the unconscious awareness was not that evolved. And so it was already starting the process of pulling her back, which is the reason why her friend was coming in and why that conversation was being had. And it was to put her back where she unconsciously was believing from. Right. And that was going to be facilitated with doubt and questioning. And then as we doubt and as we question, then everything slips back until we actually don't trust what it was that we really thought we could trust 3 days ago. Mm-hmm. And we didn't really know that we weren't congruent. We didn't know that our conscious and unconscious minds were not really on the same page because it felt so good when we had that amazing session. It felt so good, so right, so amazing, everything flowing so beautifully, but it just wasn't changing that unconscious thinking.
Right. So how do we get into that place of acceptance?
Well, one of the, so again, I once we see this, so what we were doing with this person, we were recognizing for my client that this friend that she was so angry at, who just kept coming back and saying, no, you need to do more. Like she came back about 3 times in that week. She was so troubled by the fact that she left this. She just couldn't conceptualize that it could be that easy and that simple. And so she just came back to be helpful. So how do we do that? We recognize that we're in judgment. We desire to recognize maybe we've got these anger feelings to our friend and we don't want to spend the day angry. So we're choosing to bring our own light here, or we're choosing to say yes to divine compassion coming in to the us that's angry and the us that's judging our friend. And that can start to change things, because divine compassion coming in is delivering new information, love, light. I like to also call divine compassion love masked. So in other words, it's like maybe you or the person over there can't say yes to divine love coming from the universe to them in whatever place they're in on that day. I can't say yes to love, but I can say yes to compassion. And compassion is just love masked. It's kind of love masked, M-A-S-K-E-D.
Okay.
Yeah, masked. So it's like, okay, well, you don't really recognize it as love, but it is love, and it's gonna bring you back to love. But yeah, just say yes to compassion, because that feels like something you can say yes to. Right. But no, not love for me. No, not love for me. But when you say yes to divine compassion, ultimately divine compassion is going to deliver you back to the frequency of love. But it's something that feels like you could say, most people feel like could say yes to that. Right? But if they're still in such judgment of themselves for not being good enough, for not being this enough, or not being smart enough, they're still so in judgment about what they did wrong, then they're not saying yes to love. I don't deserve to be loved for this. Right. But yes, I'll say yes to compassion. So that would be one way. Ho'oponopono would be another. But right. The first way is to recognize that this is what's happening. Right? If this is what's going on in your life, and this person is in your life, they could be in your life doing exactly what this friend was doing to another friend, not to piss you off, not to drive you crazy, because they are a complete mirror. That friend is a complete mirror for unconscious beliefs that you're not even aware of.
Right. Yeah. And
so the first step is to stop the judgment, maybe take hold of the emotions, not suppress them, not repress them, but allow those emotions to be touched by your divine light, to be touched by divine compassion. Because once you make the decision that they be touched by that, they will be forever changed. Because now new information is coming in to those corridors, which means coming into you that's feeling that way. And the moment new divine information comes in, then it changes. It changes. Something's got it. Some perception now, perspective now changes. So my way of dealing with all of this is pretty much the same. It's like with no judgment, if I recognize myself in judgment, and then I say, well, this isn't the place I want to be. I'm not judging myself for being in judgment. I'm not judging myself for any of the emotions that I'm holding. I'm just asking myself, where do I want to be? How much of my day do I want to be here doing this? How much am I valuing my day? How much am I valuing maybe my physical body? Because I'll tell you, to spend the day in anger, like just to spend the day or the week or the year in anger, oh my God, the consequences to the physical body, right? And sure, you can make that choice, right? But, to make that choice and to stay in those places, there is consequence to the physical body. And I just want to feel better than that, right? I just don't want to feel that yucky. I just don't want to feel that constricted. I just want to feel more joyful. I don't know. I just want to feel more joyful. I want to feel lighter. I don't want my whole day taken up with this. Like right now I go back and I can't feel any of the disappointment I had with regard to Rima. It's gone. right? It's gone. It's just like, it's, through the talk that we had here, it finished that process. I don't feel that anymore. And I don't need to go back to even go look to figure out another way that I could feel disappointed in her or the Ontario government. I want my day to be better than that.
Right.
Have I just rambled on, or was I helpful?
No, very helpful. No, we need to be able to see how, one, the mirror kind of works, but also that we have a choice. This is where people get so confused. It's like they think we don't, a lot of people, they get angry or they get frustrated or whatever. I mean, even looking at this past year, what a year it's been, but instead of going, okay. I mean, a lot of people say, well, I have no choice. I have to do it this way. This is the only way I can be. It's like, well, you're missing the point.
I get it. The only way I can be because the government are this.
Right.
And because they're making these choices, and because all we ever hear on the airwaves is vaccination, 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 and we never hear about another way that any of this might be helped. And I could stay in anger all day, all day. I could be in anger all day by the craziness that is going on. But I choose not to be.
Right.
I choose not to be. The consequences to my body, I choose not to be. And I want to be my best light. I like to follow divine role. And I think I said this before, but I'll say it again. In my practice, it's been a very interesting year, this COVID year, because it really solidified this. In my practice, I had a mentor years ago. I love her, still love her. And she was adamant. Tracy, just make sure you are always in your role, your divine role when you're in the presence of a client. Make sure that you have a role. So even if they've come to see you, do you have a role? Perhaps you should ask that question before you ever book the appointment for them to come to see you. But you should never be operating in somebody's world, them as a client and you as a practitioner, if you do not have a divine role to play. Because if you don't have a divine role to play, then you are muddying their waters and you're collecting money that you shouldn't be collecting. And she was just adamant about it. And so I really took that to heart. And it's what I teach in the energy medicine class. It's that we really can feel the feeling of what it feels like to be in our best divine self, anchored all the way through the body. And we start with that. And then it's really asking a question from that really clear place. Do I have a divine role here with this client? And if so, what is it? Without the concern of whether it's a small role or whether it's a large role, I have a role here to play and I will follow that priority. And I will do that. So that is the way that I have been in practice for as many years as I had this beautiful person, Virginia, as my teacher. And then this year COVID hit. And then what I was getting in meditation is, now let's move and expand this so that you can be in your divine role always, just as much as possible. So expanding it out of your practice so that you are just in your divine role and clear about whether you have one. And if you don't have a divine role, then be silent. Be silent. Step back. Trust that there are others who do have a divine role who are taking care of business. Step back. So with the Dr. Fred Huey piece, there's lots of stuff that's been going on that I could say is offsideness of our government. But when this hit my box, I just sat with it and it wasn't going away. And this has been with me for 2 or 3 weeks and it's not going away. It just feels like it is part of my divine role to do what I can to push this letter out and to get it to people and to talk about it when I can. It just feels right. I feel very loving when I do it. Can you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
It's just very loving. It means that as I'm speaking about it, love frequencies are going out and love feels good. It feels good. It doesn't feel overwhelming to most people aren't overwhelmed by love. And so that's just from my heart and from that deeper connection, I pass this information forward to you because it is my divine role, one of my divine roles to do exactly that. And so I do it from that wonderful kind of heart place. And I have stepped back from being involved in lots of things that people have wanted me to get involved in that would be, kind of government, kind of let's stand against this and I didn't have a role there. I didn't have a role there, which meant it was going to be depleting to me. But it's going to take down my immune system. It was going to take down my energy. I was going to be stepping into corridors that just were not good, maybe for my health or for the vitality of my family. And so there was no role for me. But the people who had a role in those, a divine role, would be doing in that exactly what I was doing right here, passing on messages on the wings of angels, where as the messages are going out, they feel beautiful and people are receiving them in that way. Right. So yeah, it's, do I have a divine role here? And what is it?
I like that.
And what is it? And I care about that. And now I'm being asked to care about it daily. And I think I said this in another talk. It's been a quieter year. There has been way less things that have ruffled my feathers. And when I catch myself in judgment with things that have ruffled my feathers, and it's been very easy to do, then I practice this. It's like I practice bringing myself back into clarity because I recognize that I'm sitting in judgment. And I recognize that the truth is judgment is never clear. These are very simple. They're very simple things to understand. We are never clear when we're in judgment. There's always more for us to know. And there's always more truth available to come in because we are in judgment. Do you like how simple that is?
I do. And I wanted to ask you again what that meant when you said it last time. And I was trying to go, wait. It wasn't making sense to me now, and now it makes sense.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we're in judgment.
Yeah.
Right? So because we're in judgment, we're not clear. And if we were clear, we'd be standing in truth. We'd have all the truth we needed to be able to be clear.
Right.
So anytime I'm in judgment, no matter how clear I believe I am, I am so clear that you over there, Doug Ford, are this. I am so clear that you over here, Rima, are this. I am so clear that our federal government is this. I'm so clear, but I'm festering in judgment.
Right.
So then there must be more that I need to bring in of truth before I say a word. Because maybe it's not my divine guidance to say a word. And maybe by the time I bring in the truth, then maybe when I'm not upset and I'm clear, I will recognize this isn't divine role for me. And even if it is, I will be approaching a government letter or I'll be approaching something else without judgment on the wings of angels. Because it is part of my divine role to do so. Mm. So I just love, keep it simple, smarty. I love it. These simple ideas. If you are in judgment anywhere, there is more for you to know. As you point the finger out going, you need to know more of this and you need to, it's like there's more that you need to know if you care about the fact that you're sitting in judgment and you're not clear.
Right.
Clear means absence of judgment. Clear means you are recognizing everything is divine, just as it has unfolded. In other words, you're back to the place of this is happening for us, not to us. This is happening for me, not to me. Right. My girlfriend was frustrating me beyond belief when she kept coming back to say to me, there's more that you need to do for closure, but she was driving me crazy. I kept telling her I was fine, it was good. But who was she as I stopped judging her? And as I started to understand some of this, oh, right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, she only had to come back twice before I was so filled with doubt. Well, that couldn't have happened. That couldn't have happened if I was well anchored in my change, is the point. If I was well anchored in that change, it was fully and absolutely changed in all aspects of me congruently, then she could come back to me 5 million times and it wouldn't ruffle my feathers at all because I was so well anchored in that change. And then I'd just be sitting there saying, I'm so sorry that she just has such a healing model that has so much more suffering than the one I have and so much more hardship than the one I have. And I'll just ask for divine compassion to descend on her because, wow, it's just so challenging for her to navigate her life with those kinds of programs. But that's not where I am. Does that make sense?
It does, definitely.
Yeah. So anyway, that's been kind of my couple of weeks. Yeah. Now, okay, so we're moving into we just go all over the place. The more natural, the kind of nice segue to what I wanted to say also would have been obviously to have said it after I talked about Dr. Huey, but that's okay. We'll just be all over the place. Because I said to you before we started the talk that the other thing, because this is kind of like what are the things that have been going on in my life this month that have ruffled my feathers or that I feel are really important or that have had a really important impact for me. And one of them was finding out about some really wonderful things that are available to us here in Toronto, like here in the GTA. If we really are concerned about COVID, if we really are concerned about these flus and these variants, so to speak. Right. And I just wanted people to know that the answer is yes, there are. And it does require that somebody be maybe a little open, certainly more open-minded than our medical world is, except for the ones that are working in integrative medical doctor world. Mm-hmm. They're homeopathic, the ones that I know. I had heard about a complex remedy that's being used in Cuba that's homeopathic. They have a name for it, which is Prevengo, Prevengo. So that's, I guess, the trade name for it. And it is what the homeopaths would call a complex remedy. So I think there's like 16 or 18 different frequency or vibrations within that remedy. So it's a remedy that has some frequencies that are viral-like SARS, COVID-2, COVID-1, or COVID, SARS, and then frequencies that are flu, like the swine flu and some of the other very well-known flus, influenza A and B, tuberculinum, anyway, a lovely remedy. The Cuban government is not opting for any kind of vaccine. Their doors are not open to any of that. It's also very interesting to know that in India, homeopathy is very well known in India. So Ayurvedic medicine and homeopathy are the medicines of the doctors in that country. Right. And if people had to ever get a pharmaceutical prescription for something, that's what they would be paying for. So, and homeopathy is so much more embraced in Europe. Mm-hmm. Sadly, the Heel Company, HEEL, this company had a beautiful grouping of remedies that were here in North America and were here for years, actually. And in fact, one of them, called Traumeel at that time, actually became popular enough that you started to actually see it at Shoppers Drug Mart in its original form before the Heel Company left. like left the building, like wrote a letter to the U.S. and Canadian government, like wrote a letter to the North American collective countries and said, see you later, bye. We're going back across the ocean. We can't deal with your crap. Like we just, if you want to find us, you can come find us over across the ocean and we'll try to get something to you, but we're moving out. And now here in Shoppers Drug Mart, you can get a version of the Heal remedy that was recreated called Trauma Care. Still an amazing remedy. But the originators of Traumeel are gone. They're gone. They just picked up stakes and went, that's it. You guys are nuts. Like you guys, if you're not embracing this, that's fine. We're not here to, we can't, we've tried. Like we don't think we're going to be succeeding at changing this. And this is just too hard. So they left. And that was very sad. There's a company, Pasco Canada, that actually reformulated with permission from Heal because they weren't going to service here anymore. They actually were able to create a bunch of Pasco remedies that were specifically created to be a remedy that was as perfect a duplication as they could of what were the Heal remedies when they were here.
Nice.
So, and it is a little crazy because there was a physician, a homeopath, on the Ontario College of Physicians in that place until the early 70s. And the only reason why I know that is because I was teaching at the homeopathic college. I was doing a nutritional symptomatology course for them. This would have been maybe 10 years ago. And I remember hearing that. And I remember that that's one of the things that those people were learning about when they were taking their homeopathic doctorates, is they were learning that that was there. And that gentleman maybe was 80-something when he left. And he really felt the sadness of when he left, that there wouldn't be anybody replacing him that would have any knowledge of what we would call vibrational medicines. And he tried to stay there for as long as possible. So the reason why I give you all of that is to say to you, I didn't realize it. I said when I heard about that Cuban remedy, I thought, wow, it'd be really nice to find out what's in that remedy. It'd be really nice to get my hands on that remedy. Wouldn't that be lovely? Because that's the only thing that they're using to help people in that country. And they have a very low incidence of COVID. They're using it prophylactically. In other words, people are taking that remedy once a week. And they're using that remedy more extensively if somebody actually ends up getting sick with what we would call SARS-CoV-2 or one of the other really serious flus that seem to be all lumped together as COVID. Anyway, I was just given an understanding that that particular homeopathic complex remedy is actually here and is actually something that is available. And it is available in pellets, little homeopathic pellets, and it's available in liquid. And I was so thrilled to hear that. And it was very interesting that the coincidence of hearing that came from the woman that I co-authored the symptomatology book with. So I literally was just meeting her to give her 6 books that were to go back up to her place because she owns Edison Institute and they were supposed to go out to her students and I had them in my car. So we met the other day, coincidentally meeting the day that I had just found out that a very good girlfriend of mine had come down with what the tests had said was COVID and was actually quite sick. So my co-author friend, Lynn, she says to me, oh, well, this is available. And I have 12 bottles of it in my office. And I literally have been taking it since last September. And I got pretty sick in October, and it was very helpful to help me at that time. And because we'd been given the protocol for priming, meaning priming being you take the remedy for about 3 days, 3 doses, and then 2 doses, and then 2 doses. And then that's priming. And then you take the remedy once a week from that point, and it's supposed to give the body the ability to be able to really just feel like, oh, I can totally deal with this if you ever come into contact with something that's actually a frequency in that remedy. So it's very similar than a flu shot, but it's not a flu shot. It's what they call it is building your immunity. That's what they're calling it. They're not even calling it a prophylactic, although it is. They're just calling it building your immunity. Anyway, that Cuban remedy is here, and it is available. And I said to Laurie, I've already told her where that is, and I know where that is. And I just think it's lovely that people would know that. And would also know that there are incredible homeopaths. I've now come into contact, courtesy of just this last week of helping my girlfriend and finding out about this remedy and getting this remedy, and then connecting with two homeopaths that my same girlfriend, Lynn, has known for years. And then just being with these women and their extensive knowledge and how many people they have helped, not just through this whole COVID thing this year, but how many people they have helped every year with flus and things that, just scare the bejesus out of people. Right. And they are just so well versed in stuff like this. And it's just so very sad that we have such a closed off system that doesn't even allow for these things to be talked about, that doesn't allow for them to be advertised. That I'm being so careful with giving Laurie this piece of information that I'm not even saying the name of this place where you can go. I'm not even giving the names out of the practitioners that I'm speaking about. I will give all of that information to Laurie so that anybody that's really interested in that can get in touch with her, and then she can decide who she's talking to, because I absolutely don't want to see the coming down or, a huge disturbance or a closing of these facilities, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to see some negativity coming down on these beautiful women who are really trying to be helpful in ways that are not pharmaceutical. Mm-hmm. And very ethically done. In other words, when you have you are in their practice, you are signing forms and you're doing all of the beautiful things that you would do if you were in a regular doctor's office, because they consider themselves to be regular doctors, but just not necessarily the regular doctor as we see them here in North America. So I wanted to say that. I also wanted to say that, our preventative, this family's preventative for all of this, which has just been beautiful. There's a lovely product that has been put out by the Sorrel Company, very available in the health food stores. I always pronounce it wrong, mucoconium. And it's a little rectangular package. The pellets, you just take one and let it dissolve under your tongue. It's a nice kind of sugary pellet, and beautiful to take once a week as a flu prevention. One of these homeopaths was speaking about the box of Byron homeopathic specifically targeted for the flus of the year. So its name is Influenzium, very much available in a good health food store that sells any homeopathics. And that Influenzium and the Byron Company has a continued relationship with the WHO. And they're always finding out from that organization what are the current flus, what are the flu type strains that they feel are going to be repeating themselves in the following year, are going to be showing up in the following year. And they're always creating a remedy that is current to that information, as well as including into it, all the different frequencies that they feel they also want to include in that remedy. And I think I do want to make clear that, and I think it's a really good thing to make clear, this muconium remedy, I'm probably pronouncing it improperly, the Influenzium remedy, the Prevengo remedy, all of these homeopathics, there is no physical product in these homeopathics. None. Zero. So there's no matter, whether it's live matter or dead matter, in those products. They have been so titrated that what's left is just pure frequency. What's left is just pure energy. So if you took one of those products and it had all these different strains of viral and bacterial information in it, frequency in it, and your body was, working to learn from it and create antibodies from it, if your body was having a bit of a hard time with it, which would be very unusual because these are very, very, very low doses of all of this, then you're not passing forward some particle of a virus or a particle of a flu because you are having a hard time dealing with that, or not able to make antibodies to that, or not able to make antibodies to that quickly. There's no product in there. And that's a big difference from somebody taking a flu vaccine where you're actually taking potentially live product or dead product. And so if the body can't deal with that and not make antibodies to that, then that person just becomes a walking petri dish to spreading exactly that around them, which is what they're thinking is one of the biggest reasons why we have these variants in the first place. It has to do with all of the people that got flu shots and then did not have an immune system that could beautifully deal with all of that in a timely way. And so they're just like walking petri dishes, throwing all of that out. And that's never what's going to happen with these homeopathics. So I thought it was a good thing to say. And a good thing to let people know that they're available and that they're never going to do harm. And that Prevengo Cuban remedy has been very successfully given out to babies. It is safe it's just a varying dosages. So, a baby might get one drop twice a day if they're not feeling well, where an adult might get 7 drops if they're not feeling well 3 times a day. So it's just about playing with the amount of drops versus saying, oh, we don't give that to babies because it's too strong. It's a very low potency of a remedy. And so I really just thought maybe we just kind of, I don't know if we're ending the call, but I also wanted to, and again, I feel like as I say it, there's just the really nice love frequencies that are going out.
Nice.
Right. So, I just like people to have information. I think that's a good thing. And information that doesn't say, everything that you need to know is about vaccines and where you're going to get your shot. And I just want people to know there's other choices. And I wish, sadly, that our government was letting people know there are other choices. And I wish our government really could embrace that there are other choices the way that they are in Europe. Both are available to people in Europe, right? People get to make, beautiful, more open choices than we're being told that we can make here.
Yeah, it would be very nice if we had those choices. And unfortunately, we do have to end the call because we're past the hour.
Okay.
But this has been, I always enjoy our shows. I think that, this is about acceptance, clarity, and extra information.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's a little all over the place, but that's the way my month has been.
I think that's the way our year has been, but yes, let's go with month.
All right, then.
All right. You've been listening to News of the Heart. We've getting to the heart of what matters with Tracy McBurney on acceptance, clarity, and a little extra information. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Tracy.
All right. Love you.
Love you too.
Have a question for Laurie and want to be on the next News from the Heart show? Drop us a line via instant feedback at bmajor.org. News from the Heart is brought to you by Intuitive Soul and is produced by Major Radio for Clear Channel's iHeartRadio and bmajor.org.